A 98-year-old British soldier reveals truth about India's partition. James M. Neilson.
Who do you think is responsible for India's partition?
Britain and Muhammad Ali Jinnah. India wanted immediate independence. Britain wanted immediately out of India. So the two came together. Unfortunately, it was done too quickly. For some reason, Muhammad wanted a separate Pakistan.
I know what he said. I know what he said. I know what he said.
They would also left India in a very bad situation.
Instead of trying to figure this out, what are we going to do, he just drew a line. Now look at the problem in Kashmir today. Both countries are fighting about it all the time. Hindustan ka fauj mein tha, bahut mukhtalif log tha. Sikh, Gurkha, Maratha, Rajput, Baghera.
Did you know anything about Subhash Chandra Bose?
Jihan.
Jallianwala Bagh massacre.
I think it was a dreadful, dreadful incident and a terrible, terrible mistake. It should never have happened.
You want two things to happen.
I live to 103 years old and I want to see Donald Trump in jail. You won't. You should, but you won't.
Anything about Narendra Modi?
I think he is...
You can be honest.
I have to give a lot to India for my whole being. It was India which changed me. It made me grow up.
Is there anything in your life that you have regretted?
One of them was, again in India, a man was shot.
So this is one of the most rarest moments of my life because I think growing up, we have read in history about India's struggle to independence.
Yes.
And from the freedom fighters' perspective.
Yeah.
And for the first time, people are going to know from the British side of the perspective as well. Somebody who was there during the India's independence and has seen the partition himself. So I'm really very excited for this conversation, sir. Before we get into like all the details, where did it start and how did you see everything unfold in front of your own eyes? How old are you?
I am in my 98th year.
98 years.
Yes.
So pretty much what we are going to talk about today is happened somewhere around 80 years ago in your perspective.
Yes, that's correct.
So can you take us back because you started...
Well, I can take you back to my start in Scotland.
Yes.
I was born in Scotland and during the Depression, and my father died when I was very young.
What year was that?
1926, 27.
Okay.
And my father died when I was 2 years old, so my mother was left alone with myself and my brother. Fortunately, her grandfather had been a bit ahead of his time and had insisted that his children, the girls, be educated as well as the boys. So she was able...
Not the first time a British perspective. Yeah, I doubt that. I highly doubt that. But yeah, I mean, he just wants to talk to a soldier.
Able to get a good teaching position, which was able to sustain us during the Depression. But at that time, as you know, Britain was at the zenith of its power. It was the world power of the time in the 1920s, 1930s.
Yep.
And I grew up with a very different attitude then than I have now. For example, when you went to school, in every classroom there was a huge big map of the world. And of course, about half of it was painted red. Australia, New Zealand, India, Burma, Malaya, all the islands in the Pacific and the Mediterranean and so on.
The British Empire.
So in front of the map was also a picture of the King, King George V, who was always a little bit worried looking and dressed in a magnificent uniform. And his Queen Mary was always very upright and stable and staid and sober. So you knew with the King you were adequately protected, with the Queen you were morally protected. And beside them was a picture of Lord Baden-Powell with the crossed Union's jacks. And so you knew where honour and duty lay. Your duty was to the King and the country and to Britain. And of course at that time, growing up with that atmosphere, you began to believe that the world was in its correct British orbit.
Yeah.
That's the way it should be, because we're British, therefore
and you somewhere felt superior?
a feeling
made to feel superior?
Well, not a feeling of superiority, but a feeling of entitlement.
Entitlement.
We're British, we own 3/4 of the world, therefore we're entitled to whatever we can do.
Yeah.
That was the basic attitude when you grew up as a child.
Yeah.
And of course, unlike the American children who are always God blessing America and clutching the flag and so on, we did not do any of that. But
Oh man, I miss those days. I really miss those days. We no longer do that. It's more akin to don't fly the American flag, fly it upside down, or by any means fly every other nation's flag above it. That's where we've gotten to in America. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. We need to go back to being proud of our nation. We have to, because I mean, if Britain had a bit of that pride, Britain wouldn't be in the state it's in.
it was much more invasive in a way, more pervasive because you kind of absorbed it as you moved along. It was with you wherever you went. Your duty lay to the king and the queen and the country and the Britain generally. So you grew up with this attitude all the way through your life.
Right. And was that the reason that also got you instigated towards joining British Army?
Well, at that time, I wanted a boy always wants to be something active, a policeman, a fireman, a soldier or whatever. So I wanted to be a soldier at that time, growing up as a young boy.
How old were you at that time?
Growing up all the 1930s, I was 12, 13, 14, up till 1939. And of course, the war came in 1939 and I was 13 or 14 years old. And so at that time, you felt obligated to do something towards the war effort.
Yeah.
So I joined the Army Cadets at that time, and of course you were therefore told shown how to shoot rifles and throw grenades and shoot machine guns and so on. And so from the age of about 13 on up to the age of 17, I was in the Army Cadets being taught how to basically injure and kill people. That's what the attitude at the time was, because you were in a war of survival.
You're a soldier. That's what your duty is, to protect your nation. That's basically that. I mean, also I guess invade nations, but yeah, that's a soldier.
Right.
And when I was at school, by the age of 16, there was an officer from the Indian Army came round to all the major schools in Britain to try to get young men to join the Indian Army. And
Keeps hitting the
at that time I
mic.
was 16 and a half. I thought, this is a great opportunity. I will volunteer to join the Indian Army. And of course, you must understand, I had been brought up with the attitude of Rudyard Kipling, with all the jingoistic poems and stories of Kim and Jungle Book and all the rest of it.
Right.
And so you had a firm belief in the rightness of things British. So when he came round and made the suggestion to try to join the Indian Army, I thought this is a great idea, so which I did. I was taken to London. I was interviewed in London. I spent a week down there where you had to sit examinations. You were physically examined. You were given intelligence tests and all the rest of it. And then a decision was made whether you were accepted as a cadet into the Indian Army or not.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I managed to pass that.
Yes, the video's
but
fast.
I left
because he was
school
going
before I sat
slow.
the final leaving examination. So I had no academic qualifications other than what I already had, but I had no official qualifications when I left school. And I was then taken into the British Army initially for the first few months of training and then sent to India in early 1944 to Bangalore, to the Officer Cadet Training School in Bangalore.
And how old were you when you landed in
I
India?
was 17 years old.
17 years old.
17 and a half years old, yes.
Amazing.
When I landed in India, that's right. I was commissioned by the age of 18 to the 6th Gurkha Rifles. And as you know, at that time in India, there were many different regiments of different peoples. I'll try and speak in Urdu for a little bit of this. Hindustan ka fauj mein tha, bahut mukhtalif log tha. Sikh, Gurkha, Maratha, Rajput, Wagera. इसलिए पलटन में आपने मादरी ज़बान बोलते. They spoke their own language.
They spoke their own language.
इसलिए सब फौज की था, सब फौज के लिए एक ज़बान ज़रूरी था.
Okay.
इसलिए उर्दू चुना था.
That's when you started learning Urdu.
That's exactly. You had to learn the one language because all the different.
Anybody can understand.
Yeah, that's right. Every different regiment spoke different languages.
Right.
So they had to have one language which they all spoke,
And that was Urdu.
and that was Urdu. So when you graduated as an officer, you had to pass the examination in Urdu. And at that time, Asi Sal hua, मैं अच्छी उर्दू बोल सकता था.
I'm pretty sure you're speaking better than.
लेकिन अभी मेरा उर्दू आसान नहीं है. आसान नहीं है.
अच्छा नहीं है.
अच्छा or आसान.
Asan. Asan is like it's not complex.
It's not आसान.
Asan means simple.
Well, मुख्तलिफ था.
See the words that you're saying, even I don't know the meaning of that.
मुख्तलिफ.
So I'm pretty sure you're right.
Difficult.
Difficult.
Yeah, difficult.
Difficult.
Yeah, अभी difficult है. अभी मुख्तलिफ है.
That is maybe because you're not speaking regularly, which we were talking
Okay,
about.
so we'll stop here.
No, you can speak anytime in between because I love it. The way that
But it's not. You must admit, it's not very good now. But Asi Sal hua.
Asi Salo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so how was it working along with other Indian soldiers?
Well, what you've got to realize when you go with this attitude of not superior but entitlement and a degree of superiority.
Yeah, it would be superiority. He can't use entitlement. It was primarily superiority. You think you're better than. There's nothing wrong with admitting to how you felt back in the day. There's nothing wrong with it.
You look upon people differently. So you don't look down on them, but you look at them as being a little bit different. Kind of like the Indian caste system where you're all human beings, but
You're treated differently.
You're treated
based on your
different.
caste.
Exactly. So in a kind of a way, that was the attitude of the British officer at the time. But once you got to the regiment, you began to realize that people were very similar to yourself. They were very, very good people. They were excellent soldiers. The Indian soldier was an excellent soldier, and that's my honest opinion. So as you developed, you began to realize that this difference in superiority did not really truly exist. And in a way, though, there was a great deal of respect between the British officer and the Indian soldier, and vice versa. There was a great respect from the Indian soldier to the British officer. So there was a communion of spirit in the whole army, shall we say, which was unique.
Did that change your perspective about India?
It changed my perspective totally from my initial attitude of superiority to one of equanimity and evenness.
When you were working alongside other
When I was
individuals?
working particularly with Indian soldiers, I began to realize these people were very good people, were very excellent in all the things that they did. And so my attitude changed remarkably over time. But you must realize...
Yeah, so it's easy to say that I had a superiority complex, and as I got to know the people, it changed as I got to grow close to them. There's nothing wrong with admitting that.
I went to India as a very young man, my Jawanta. So as a young man, you're more interested in immediate gratifications, parties and whatnot. But it takes a little time for the cultures of India, the many different cultures, to sort of seep in and begin to change you. And so it took really the 4 years that I was in India before I began to realize just how profound the country was.
Can you state any kind of a story or an experience which made a big impact in your life related to what you were doing and that changed your perspective altogether?
During the latter part of the war, I was in Burma. Fortunately, I missed most of the war. I only got into the very end of it.
Okay.
And the enemy, Dushman Japanta.
Yeah, Burma mein.
Burma mein.
Yeah.
So it's the Main Burma mein Ta. Now, when I was there, we were stationed beside a field hospital. I was in the infantry, but the field hospital was stationed near us. And some of the doctors came to eat with us. And one of them said, "Would you like to come and watch an operation?" So I thought, well, what the hell, nothing to lose, I'll go. And I went and watched, there was an Indian soldier who'd been shot in the head, and this, he was a neurosurgeon, was operating on him to take the bullet out. And for the first time in my life, I began to realize I had been taught from the age of 13 up until now how to kill and injure people. And here was a man who was doing exactly the opposite. He had been trained how to save people. Now, it didn't hit like a bullet. It didn't just suddenly say, oh, this is wonderful. But somehow or another, it filtered into my personality that there's other ways of living rather than this total attitude towards warfare. So that was one of the experiences I did have.
And especially, I think the war which happened in Burma was one of the biggest challenges, and also, Indian soldiers performed very well during that.
The Indian soldier was the main backbone of the army in Burma at that time, under General Slim.
The Indian Army because the Indian Army belonged to Britain, so it fought for the British. That's why it couldn't fight for India, because it didn't belong to India, it belonged to the British.
And most of the soldiers were Indian.
Right.
There were some British soldiers, but mainly it was Indian soldiers.
In fact, there were 2.5 million Indian soldiers.
Exactly, there were 2.5 million Indian soldiers, that's right. And there was also, mind you, the Indian National Army under Subhadra Chandra Bose.
This is one of the most asked questions by the audience before before doing this podcast.
Yeah.
You know what I usually do? I go to my Instagram stories and I ask people, what one question do you want me to ask the guest today?
Okay, sure.
And the most question was about, did you know anything about Subhash Chandra Bose?
Jihan. Subhadra Chandra Bose had been in the Indian Army, had been captured by the Japanese, and he changed his allegiance to try to get Indian independence, understandably. So there were two sort of Indian armies, as it were. There was the Indian Army controlled by the British and owed allegiance to the British, and then there was a few Indian soldiers who had been captured who had transferred their allegiance to Subhadra Chandra Bose, who was in charge of the Indian National Army, fighting against the British.
Yes.
So yes, that was fact.
Yeah. So, and also there were a lot of, there were two sides of the coin, because on one side, there were Mahatma Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru, who believed in non-violence, who believed in that, by peaceful protest, you will be able to get freedom from the British.
Yeah.
On the other side, there were a different set of, thoughts where Subhash Chandra Bose was the leader, where he said that, you've got to get what's yours.
That's right.
So did you see these two?
Oh, yes. You came across that quite frequently, particularly after the end of the war, when India was trying desperately for its independence. And there was Mahatma Gandhi, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, and Muhammad Ali Jinnah, who was a Muslim. Now, initially, when India wanted its independence from the 1920s onwards, these had been the three major players. And they wanted a unified India at that time. They wanted the whole of India to be unified.
Just one small incident I would like to bring in the notice that, during 1920s and during 1990s, you probably might have heard about Jallianwala Bagh massacre.
Yes, that was Amritsar massacre.
Yes.
Yeah, 1927.
And it was a peaceful crowd gathering which was happening.
I know.
So do you know anything about how General Dyer did that?
That was a terrible, terrible, terrible blot in the whole of the British interest in India.
And that was one of the major, instigations by a lot of freedom fighters. Like
I know.
Maybe you came a little later. to India, which was in 1944.
Yeah.
But there is one of the biggest freedom fighter by the name of Bhagat Singh,
Yeah.
who was
Hanged by the British, yeah.
Bhagat Singh, Rajguru, and Sukhdev.
Exactly.
They were all three, and they were in early 20s.
That's right. And they were hanged by the British.
Yeah.
I know that.
Yeah.
No, I remember the Amritsar massacre was 1927.
Yeah. What is your viewpoint about that? Like, do you think it was unfair?
I think it was a dreadful, dreadful incident and a terrible, terrible mistake. It should never have happened. The people were peaceful. They were trying to get independence by peaceful means, and the army was brought in and shot them. I know that. It was a dreadful incident.
Well, it wasn't entirely peaceful means. I mean, Bhagat Singh was basically wanting the invading force out of his country and was willing to do not whatever it takes, but was willing to fight and wanted like Indian independence by having India control its own nation. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. That's basically being a patriot. You're fighting against the Britishers in your land. I mean, I'm an American. I can easily see that he was an absolute patriot trying to free himself from a tyrannous regime. I mean, that's what the forefathers of America did. They fought. They were patriots to the nation. Heck, if Britain continued to keep hold of the America, then guess what? They would be seen as treasonous. They would be seen as traitors. They wouldn't be seen as patriots. But that's what it is. You have to be a patriot to fight for your nation, fight for your land, fight for your people, for your soil. Everything that you view as yours, your land, your people is yours. And that's what Bhagat Singh did. He was willing to do whatever it took to get the invading force who didn't belong and didn't to integrate themselves into India. They always kept themselves like a step foot out. Like they weren't Indian, they were Britishers. They were never engrossed themselves into the culture. They were always like on a foot outside. So you can't say that he was completely peaceful, but it's justified with what he was doing. Not like the crap. There was the guy who went all the way to, I forgot his name, who went all the way to Europe to basically assassinate the general who like ordered the death of like the people in India. Like he went all the way there. At that point, he became a terrorist because he traveled to another nation. Bhagat Singh was in his own land, trying to defend his own land from a dictator.
And also, we have heard a lot of, not heard, like obviously we know that, sorry to say this, but British people treated Indians very badly. And they were like, even outside the theaters, they were like hoardings which could say that, dogs and Indians are not allowed. So this treatment, what is your perspective? Did you see anything at the time in front of your own eyes happening like that?
Yes, that did happen. And again, it was part of the attitude of the times. That's what I'm saying. When I went to India with this kind of attitude, but how it changed as I was in India for the 4 years, I began to realize how wrong it was. And the attitudes of the people were so wrong at the time. And I'll tell you something. My three major heroes in life, who they are: Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, and Martin Luther King Jr., all black or brown. So that's why my attitude had changed completely in the 4 years that I was in India.
Did you ever get an opportunity to meet Mahatma Gandhi?
No, I wish I had, but no, I didn't.
But did you see them?
Oh, I've seen them. I saw them passing in a car once with Muhammad Ali, not Jinnah, with Pandit Nehru
Siddhar,
and Gandhi in the car. But it was just going past, that was all.
Which year, do you know? Do you remember which year was that?
No, I can't remember, no. It must have been 1946, something like that. I can't remember.
And so there is a lot of conspiracy about Subhash Chandra Bose as well, that I think his body was never found in the plane crash that happened. Do you have any idea about that?
I don't know about that.
So that was a big, one of the biggest controversies.
Yeah.
And still, like, people haven't been able to find what is the reality behind it. And they said that, there could be some...
You mean whether he was deliberately killed? Well, it's possible. It takes you time in association with the different peoples of India to realize they were quite justified in what they were demanding, and had been demanding for many years. The British had no right to be there.
Yeah.
Yep.
But that was just maybe that you had to learn by actually going.
Like, again, the only thing that would change the narrative if the British allowed to be there is if they integrated themselves into the culture, got married there, had families there, decided to dedicate their lives there. Kind of like what the Americans did when they seceded from Britain. They cut all ties and were like, no, you stay away from us. We'll take care of ourselves. They would have to completely join into the nation that was there. That's the only outcome, but they never did. They never did. That's why it was like dogs and Indians not allowed, because it was like they were the upper class. They were the elite. They were the best.
There and
That's
having
right.
to look into things.
You had
through
freedom
your
to
own
actually
eyes.
go there. And I was fortunate not only going there, but I had intimate relationships with Indian soldiers all the time, dealing with
Who did you find the most friendly vibes with? Is it
the most friendly. I think, you know, this is an interesting thing. The whole time I was in India, I never once felt threatened. Never once. I travelled throughout the whole of India, and sometimes alone. I never at any point felt threatened. And to this day, I sometimes wonder about, I should have felt threatened, because why would they not dislike me? You know, why would they not try to do something to injure me? But never, ever did I feel threatened. Never once. And that's always, it's always stuck in my mind that way. And you know, the other interesting thing, I'm somewhat amazed sometimes how little animosity that the Indian people actually had towards the British. They voiced a lot of opinions, but there was no real hatred and anger, which used to amaze me also. And yet, I kind of understand it, because Gandhi ji himself said, we have travelled a long way with the British, now let's leave it that way. In other words, don't fight, don't be angry, don't hurt.
Yeah.
And that was his whole way of doing things.
right?
Yeah.
What is your honest opinion about the crown itself?
The crown?
Yeah.
Well, I have two mixed feelings about that.
Okay.
Because you see, in Britain, everything of note owes allegiance to the crown. The army, the navy, the air force, the police, the lawyers, the professors in the universities, they're all regius professors appointed by the crown. So you owe allegiance to the crown. You do not owe allegiance to a political party.
Right.
You owe allegiance to the crown. The crown
Not
being
anymore.
the supreme leader of that country.
Yeah.
So therefore, you have this supreme leader who has no political power actually, but controls emotionally
Yeah.
everyone else. And in a way has a final say. Before they sign a document, they could refuse to sign the document. Now, if the Queen or the King refused to sign the document, people would say, my God, why is that? What's happened? What's so wrong with it that there's not signing it? So in a way, it's a final protection against autocracy and communism, to have one person who can say, no, it's not good. But on the other hand, should some one person be in control of the whole thing? No, they shouldn't. So I've got split feelings about it. I understand the good part of it.
What is the good part?
The good part is that it's the final protection against autocracy, because they can refuse to sign the document. If a communist or an autocratic parliament brought a document to the Queen or the King and said, you must sign that, and if he said, no, I am not signing it, the people would wonder why. They would say, what the hell is wrong with it? So it's a protection against final autocracy. That's why I like it. But on the other hand, I don't
So basically
like
like
it
an
because of
elected
the
president.
superiority attitude of it.
Yeah. But do you think, like in a world like today's, crown, autocracy, these kind of things, or democracy?
I believe in democracy, but I don't believe in autocracy, and I'm kind of dubious about the crown.
So you have mixed feelings about the
Yeah,
crown?
mixed feelings.
But
I
you
have no
think-
mixed feelings about democracy and autocracy. I have no doubt about that.
Yeah. Okay, so something that you remember from your experience about the things that happened during the freedom fight by Mahatma Gandhi or Muhammad Jinnah.
Well, as you know, after I don't know where to quite begin with this. You see, unfortunately, India was wanting its independence immediately after the war, understandably. The British government wanted to get the hell out of India as fast as it could because they were poor, the war had finished, they were losing money hand over fist, the country was destitute. And they realized you could not control a country like India unless you had massive amounts of soldiers there to control the population. Well, they couldn't do this.
Yeah.
After the war, all the soldiers were going home. And
Massive amount of soldiers to control the population. That just proves how they had a complete dictatorship over India. There should never have been a place in time where Britain could back out and India would fall apart. There should never have been that case. It should have easily been to where they can up and go, and the systems that were allotted in place, like the British would just be there and have a base there. That would make sense. Like they'd have a massive base there. It's but no, it was complete dictatorship. It was a complete dictatorship. Imagine if a royal family member contests elections and becomes prime minister of UK. It is kind of like a same system again. Exactly.
they were not prepared to keep on trying to control India. So they wanted to get the hell out as fast as they could.
Yeah, but they would also left India in a very bad situation.
Exactly. That's what I'm coming to. That's exactly what I'm coming to.
Just like to add a little, like even during the World War II, and when the famine happened, like we talked about, 3 million people died over there.
Yeah.
But most of the food supplies actually were given to the British soldiers
Oh,
during
I'm
that time.
probably
So
quite,
the
yeah.
priority was based on, who deserves to eat.
That's right. Oh, yeah, I believe that's probably quite
Yeah,
true.
so they completely left India out of any resources during that time, and then they were like, oh, we don't have anything else to.
Yes, no, I do understand that, and I know that did happen.
Yeah.
But you see, to go back to the business of the independence, understandably, India wanted immediate independence. Britain wanted immediately out of India.
Yeah.
So the two came together. Unfortunately, it was done too quickly. And the people, and let's go back a little bit. At one time, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, Gandhi, and Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru wanted a unified India. Now, towards the end, for some reason, Muhammad Ali Jinnah wanted a separate Pakistan.
Can I add a question over here?
Yeah.
Who do you think is responsible for India's partition?
Britain and Muhammad Ali Jinnah, these two. Because Gandhi and Nehru still wanted a total India, the whole country. But they even offered Muhammad Ali Jinnah to be the first Prime Minister of India when independence was proclaimed, and he refused. He wanted an independent Pakistan for some reason.
And that changed
That
pretty much
changed the
towards
attitude. That changed the attitude between Jinnah and Gandhi and Nehru.
Yeah.
Initially, they had been great friends, and Jinnah suddenly sort of flipped over to the side. And what then happened was the fault of the British. Instead of taking time to recognize necessary boundaries which should occur between.
Yep, they should have had people sit down and actually figure it out. They rushed the entire thing because it was Britain's fault to begin with, but they wanted to quickly get out. The thing is, Gandhi basically gave the approval, and the whole thing they just up and left. They up and left because Gandhi's like, all right, fine, you can leave. We'll take care of it.
The two countries. They just drew a line. For example, Kashmir was ruled by a Hindu ruler, yet the majority of the population were Muslim. So instead of trying to figure this out, what are we going to do, they just drew a line. Now look at the problem in Kashmir today. Both countries are fighting about it all the time. That's the reason why. Punjab is another good example. The Sikhs live in Punjab.
Yeah.
The very place where your leader of Sikhism was born is now in Pakistan.
Yeah.
And yet your golden temple is Amritsar. So tell me that line should have been drawn down there. Yeah. It should have been done that way or this way, one or the other. Yes. Now, you see, to me, it was deliberate. It was a deliberate policy to get rid of this as fast and as quickly as possible.
And also, deliberate, it is also one of the strategies of Britishers, like what they call is divide and rule.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's right. Divide and rule. That's right. Yeah. That's how they did the whole empire all the way through the centuries, divide and rule.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Just with one decision that they took, 80 years ago, and still people are fighting. And the countries are fighting.
Right.
The whole country.
But it wasn't just the British. It was Muhammad Ali Jinnah as well. And he was the pusher for it. I blame him. Because I mean, Gandhi in particular was a non-violent man of peace.
What is your viewpoint about Mahatma Gandhi?
Yes, a non-violent man of peace in a time when you cannot have that. You cannot have that. He was a fat liberal hog, white woman that was literally born too soon and in the wrong nation.
Mahatma Gandhi, I have great admiration for him. I mean, he was a man who was well educated, came from a good background, had all the possibility to live a life of affluence and whatever. Instead, he devoted his life to what? Indian independence is one thing. And not only independence, but with peace and security for everyone.
Do you think Mahatma Gandhi was also politically aligned and collaborated with Britishers in some way?
No, only insofar as he wanted independence. He would go along with various things in order to get independence. Right. But I don't think he was aligned with the British, no.
And what about Jawaharlal Nehru?
Jawaharlal Nehru, another highly educated, very intelligent man, who I think he was more politically concerned than Gandhi was. Gandhi was more emotionally concerned and psychologically, and his whole soul was concerned in it. Yeah. Muhammad Ali Jinnah was for Pakistan. Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru was very politically inclined.
But why do you think Mahatma Gandhi was later assassinated?
Because it was some absolute fanatical idiot.
No, the fanatical idiot would have been Gandhi. You can't have someone telling people to sacrifice their own families, to sacrifice their own loved ones, just because you don't want them to defend themselves. You can't have that. You're going to enrage people who have seen the loved ones die before their eyes because their loved ones apparently listened to Gandhi's words and took a bullet to the heart or allowed their bodies to get violated before they were cut in half or whatever might have happened. You can't have someone pushing that kind of toxic American liberal mindset when when the nation is basically on the brink of a civil war, which technically it was, because Pakistan was a part of India till the partition, and it was on a massive civil war. That's why he was killed, because he had pushed for values which have no place when you need to be focusing on the heart of the nation, on your people, on defense. An old guy has no knowledge of what actually Gandhi was. Yeah. He just, the thing is like Britain loves Gandhi. The rest of the world loves Gandhi. They all praise Gandhi. Only now are people actually like, why was this guy talking this crazy stuff when our people were being killed? That's like America going through its civil war and people going out going like, no. Let your children be killed in front of you. That just proves you're better than them. Like, what?
We thought that Gandhi had betrayed them. I don't know why. I really don't know why. I don't know why it happened. Had a Muslim shot him, or maybe even a Sikh shot him, I might have understood that. But I think it was a Hindu who shot him. I can't be.
Nathuram Godse.
Pardon?
Nathuram Godse.
Was that who it was? And was he a Hindu?
He was a Hindu.
Yeah, there you go. Now, I never quite understood that.
Yeah.
What
I
do you
understand
think?
it.
Yeah, it is very. Yeah, I would have understood if it is because of the partition, I think, and also like partition between India and Pakistan. I would understand that could be the reason why did they let that happen. So I could understand the animosity from the Muslim side of the.
Yeah, if a Muslim had
side,
shot him, I could understand that. That's right.
Yeah,
But if a Hindu shooting him, I couldn't understand
it's a
that.
tragedy that when you think about it, that
Well, I think it changed the whole country.
yeah,
I think.
Yeah, if you just think about it logically, it's easy to understand how he was shot. It's easy to understand how he was shot because you're constantly hearing this person who living in the life of luxury. Again, it's like these people in Hollywood or musicians who are constantly telling us people how we're supposed to live our life because they don't understand how the world truly works or how we truly live our lives. They don't get it, and that's the thing. He was he's the Billie Eilish of back in the day. Said something absolutely stupid and is dealing with the consequences of it. Is it bad that his life was taken? Yes. Is it bad that Billie Eilish is being harassed? Yes. But you're going to end up with crazies who hate what you have said and will get you for it. Western powers want a base in subcontinent to encircle USSR. The AFG denied to the Congress won't allow foreign military on their soil again, so they created POC for future military development. That's the first I've heard. I probably need to learn more about that.
Gandhi died, it changed the
Probably.
whole country.
yes, it totally
Yeah,
did.
the attitudes began to change, yeah. That's right.
Conspiracies.
So when did you leave India?
In 1948, after independence.
So you have seen India's fight with, like during India's independence, you have seen that what happened
Yes.
before the
Yeah.
partition happened, during the partition.
Yeah.
Then around in 1948, I think, was it in January where there was another battle between India and Pakistan?
Well, I left in March or April of 1948, so I was there in January, yeah. Well, there was a lot of trouble between,
No, actually, I think in January, Mahatma Gandhi was assassinated.
oh yeah, that's right. Yes, that's right. He was.
I think he was
that's correct.
assassinated
Yeah.
on 30th January or something.
Yeah, that's right.
Can you check if that's right?
I'm sure it was.
30th January? Yeah.
Yeah.
So 30th January he
Yeah,
was
yeah,
assassinated.
yeah.
So where were you during that time?
I honestly cannot remember. In beginning of 1940. Oh, I know I was. Yes, I was in Madras at that time. I was down in southern India at that time.
How was the situation during that time when Mahatma Gandhi got assassinated? What were people feeling during that time?
Well, independence had already been achieved, so that was one thing that was on the good side.
Yeah.
The bad side was his assassination. A lot of the calmness disappeared. In other words, he had been a profound influence. And
It's funny how he says calmness when they were already basically slaughtering their neighbors at that point in time. It was a complete civil war. As soon as the partition happened, it was like literally the next day, all kinds of fights broke out. It's crazy to say that, peace was dismantled. No. That was already dismantled.
on calming any kind of animosities. There was even one time he went on a hunger strike to stop the rioting which was occurring in Calcutta at that time, if I remember. And he went on a hunger strike to death. He was going to die unless it stopped. And it did stop. So he was very successful in using his behavior patterns to control situations, but it got out of his control politically. It became a political entity, no longer a feeling from the heart, but more from
the mind.
the mind, politically.
Politically.
Yeah.
So you told me one incident just before this. You were telling me that when you saw a dead body being, like a person being treated on that changed a lot of
Yes, it
perspective for
did.
you.
Changed my attitude, yeah.
And after serving as a soldier, what did you do in your career later on? in
Oh,
life?
after I left India.
Yeah.
Well, I came back to Britain, and as I told you earlier, I had not passed the final examination for leaving school, which in Scotland is called the school higher leaving certificate. Now, in order to get any further training in university or anywhere else, you had to have your higher leaving certificate. I didn't have it, so I was stuck. What the hell am I going to do? Fortunately, in Scotland at that time, you could sit an examination called the Scottish University Entrance Exam, which was a very difficult exam. If you passed that, you were then allowed to apply to any Scottish university for entrance to any faculty. It didn't mean you would be accepted. It meant you could apply. So I thought, I have got to pass this exam.
Right.
So I went home. I studied like hell for some months. I sat the exam
What did you study?
and passed it. Well, it was mathematics, physics, chemistry, English, history, the whole boiling.
Okay.
It was everything. And you had to have, but the interesting thing, you had to have a different language. I chose Urdu.
Oh, is it?
So I sat an exam in Urdu and passed it.
इसीलिए your Urdu, आपकी Urdu अच्छी है.
My Urdu, achi nahi hai. I mean, achi nahi hai.
At least one.
But you see, so
I understood that. Well, a bit.
I managed to pass that exam.
Yeah.
And therefore, I then applied for medicine because what had happened in Burma these years ago, it suddenly began to click. What would I want to do with the rest of my life? I had been taught how to kill from the age of 13 to 21.
Yeah.
That's all I had learned how to do. And now, what am I going to do for the rest of my life? And so this incident of the Indian soldier shot in the head in Burma, click. What am I going to do? Maybe I should try to help people instead of trying to kill them. And that's how I became applied for medicine. And then after medicine, of course, you graduate and you spend your 1 year, in Britain they call that a house doctor, here they call it an intern. You do medicine and
Residency.
surgery. And after that, I thought, what am I going to do from now? I wanted to be a paediatrician. That was one who deals with children's diseases. So I went to a children's hospital in Scotland. And for the first 6 months I was there was one little boy who was the same age. I had a son at that time who was age 3. This little boy was age 3. And he had an incurable leukemia. And he was very sick and very ill. And the only person he would allow to do anything with him, because I became very attached to him, was me. He wouldn't allow the nurses to take blood off. He wouldn't allow them to feed them. I had to feed him. I had to take the blood off. I had to give him any medication. He was the only one who would allow him to touch him. And I became extremely attached to this boy. Unfortunately, he died. And I realized at that time I could not be a paediatrician because I became too attached to the children. So I then decided I'm going to do something else. And the one aspect in medicine where you don't have to deal with people really all that much is anesthesiology. You deal with them on a table, but you're not dealing with them all the time. So this emotional aspect of the childish thing, I realized I don't want to become too emotionally attached, so I'll become an anaesthetist. So that's what I did.
So that's how you became an
Yeah.
anesthetist. And then when did you move to Canada?
1955 or 56.
You know, it is very interesting that even for choosing a subject that you chose as
Yeah.
a language subject,
Yeah.
you could have chosen French because, you know.
No, I didn't like French. I was very bad at French in school.
Is it?
I remember one mark I got in my French examination at school was 19 out of 100. Not very good. So no, I didn't choose French. I chose Urdu.
Oh, yeah.
And I passed it.
And you passed it.
Yeah.
You know, I chose French.
Oh, well,
And that was for 6 months, and that is where I met my wife.
oh, well, good for you. Well,
But
that's
I
very
never
good.
understood
Yeah,
French.
Yeah. You know, there's one little interesting part of my time in India, which is a bit. You know, at one time, the people in what they called the tribal territories between Afghanistan and northwest India used to raid into India all the time.
Yeah.
And they would kill off a few people and steal a few women and pinch the cows and the sheep and go back into the tribal territories. And there was nothing you could do about it. 1947 at some point, there was a raid from the tribal territories into northern...
What year was it?
I think it was 1947 or maybe it was 46. I can't just quite remember. But there was a raid into northern India near a little town called Buffa and a little town called Ogi in the Northwest Territories. And I was sent up with a company of Gurkha soldiers when this had happened to counter it. But of course, by the time we got there, they had gone back anyway, so it didn't matter. But that must have been one of the last raids into what was India at that time from the tribal territories of Afghanistan. And I had been sent up there to try and counter it. But by the time I got there, it was all over anyway. But you know, the interesting thing, one of the ways that the soldiers used to, there was a river where we were stationed in Buffa, there was a river near where we were stationed, and the soldiers used to go fishing. You know how they fished? They took a grenade out and threw it into the river. And of course, that stunned the fish, and then they would collect the fish.
Yeah.
That was how they fished.
That's a convenient way to
Yeah,
fish.
yeah, very good. Yeah.
Okay, so you came to Canada in 1962, you said?
1955, 56.
Okay, and you pursued medicine, worked as a...
Well, the reason I came to Canada was the Canadian... At that time, as you know, we were in the middle of the Cold War between communism and the West. You know, Britain, the NATO countries, America, and Stalin's Russia.
Yeah, it wasn't it was America and Russia. That was it. That was it. That was the Cold War. It wasn't any other nations. It was America and Russia.
Right.
There was a distinct.
Yeah.
That was called the Cold War.
How do you see Canada, US, and Britain
Today?
And India, if you have any idea about what's happening?
How do you view them? Well, we have to maintain a NATO alliance, or we'll be overrun by Russia. I'm sure of that. I mean, America is very important. That's why this coming election is very important. Because if he gets in, he'll now out to Putin.
Who?
Trump. If Trump gets in at this next election,
You want two things to happen. You said something. Can you
I
say
do.
that?
I live to 103 years old, and I want to see Donald Trump in jail. It's that simple. But anyway,
I think one of them is going to be true, which is the first one.
well,
You're going to live up till 103 years of age.
Oh, well,
the
maybe.
second one,
I mean, who knows? We'll see where the files go. We'll see where the files go.
I mean, the exit polls are quite the opposite at the moment.
well, I think if he gets in, it's game over for democracy.
But why do you think that Trump is not good for the US?
Because he's only
No, it's not that he's not good for the U.S. The problem is he's not good for the Allied forces. That's the real issue. He's absolutely good for the U.S. He's just not good for the Allied forces. And the Allied forces are sustained by the U.S. That's the real downside. That's the real political concern. I mean, heck, now we're getting into geopolitics. But yeah, that's the real issue there. Is like the U.S. has upheld like the Allied forces since the founding of the Allied forces. It's always been the U.S. because the U.S. had the massive amount of land, the massive military, the massive bases, the massive arms and armaments and everything. So it's primarily the U.S. that is the Allied force. So it's bad for every other nation if the U.S. basically does its own thing and the rest of the nations realize that they're nothing but pawns and puppets. They're just there in namesake alone. They're there at the beck and call of the U.S. They have to beg the U.S. for aid. That's the real issue. That's because Trump is not bad for the U.S. He's just bad for the allied nations because then they'll realize they're not actually allies. They're, in the end, subservient to the U.S.
He's a total narcissist. He's concerned with nothing but himself.
Narcissism, absolutely.
He's angry at everything. It's all about him. It's never, ever about anyone else. It's always about...
It's all about America. America should be the number one. And again, all nations should primarily feel the same. And honestly, that is deep down why he's angry. That is deep down why he's angry, because with America pushing out everyone else, Britain's going to be left as a third world country. It literally is, because it's going to be the U.S., China, Russia, and India, which are basically going to be the top. Because India's catching up. India's absolutely catching up. Britain has been left behind forever. So it makes sense.
Donald J. Trump. I call him Donald J. Trumpet. But, I mean, can you think of any good thing that he has done?
I can't think of any good politician doing any good thing.
Oh, the wall, absolutely. Getting out all these illegals, absolutely. The files took forever to come out. That should have been the first thing to come out, honestly. But all good things. All good things. We need to open the asylums and start putting people in boxes who are obviously mentally ill. We need to start doing that. We need to actually start holding people accountable, which we started to, who have made threats online towards like politicians or other people or federal agents. We need to put them in prison. We need to put them in prison for inciting violence. That's not the freedom of speech.
Exactly.
Well, no, some politicians try to do that. They try.
Some do it,
but they
Biden
try.
did too.
Yeah.
Have you heard anything about Narendra Modi?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
What is your viewpoint about it?
I think he is...
You can be honest.
I think he is very concerned with India's future, correctly.
Yep.
But
See ya.
I think
See
he
ya.
tends to be a bit on the autocratic side. And for some
Kenya.
people, I think it would be difficult to deal with.
So your viewpoint is somewhere like Trump in his...
Well, no, he's not as bad as Trump.
Yeah, and he thinks of him as Trump because why? Modi wants to focus primarily on India, push out India's best interests. There is nothing wrong with that. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. So in the end, that's what you have to focus on. You have to make sure that the reason why he doesn't like Trump is because Trump is having America first mindset, which puts Britain in the background. He's not that big on Modi because Modi's wanting to push India into a better future, which he's against because, it would leave Britain in the background. Again, there's nothing wrong with why he's feeling upset about it because he wants Britain to be on top, or at least carried along on top. So that makes sense. That makes sense why he's like that.
Oh God, no, he's not.
You have mixed
like
feelings
that.
about him.
I've mixed
Like
feelings.
you have for
Well, I'll
Trump.
tell you why. Because look, India wanted its independence and got it. But then instead of a unified India, you ended up with three countries: Pakistan, Hindustan, Bangladesh.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you have three little countries, not three little, but three countries. Now the Sikhs are wanting a separate Khalistan. So you want to break it up even more. So you want another little country.
India doesn't want that.
No, that's right. So Modi at least wants to try to keep a unified India. Now, I don't know who's right and who's wrong in this atmosphere because I understand the Sikhs understandably want their independence.
From what?
Well, but you see, people emotionally, people want certain things. Maybe politically it isn't correct, but emotionally, I understand that being Scottish. I mean, I want independence from England. England and Scotland have fought for hundreds of years. And yet, finally, in 1707, they became unified. They were unified in 1601 with the Crown when Queen Elizabeth died, and James I of Scotland, James VI of Scotland became James I of England. So they were unified by the Crown. Then they became politically unified in 1707 when the two countries' parliaments joined together.
Yeah.
So they unified. But ever since then, there's still been a Scottish independence movement. They want their independence. Now, as an emotional Scotsman, I would like to see Scotland independent. But as a political Scotsman, I say that's stupid. You're breaking up a country which is small enough already into smaller parts. Why?
Yeah, because a lot of the infrastructure, like that's the thing, like California wanted to cede from the U.S. And, well, it's actually impossible because a lot of the power and a lot of this, sure, there's some agriculture in the California, but a lot of its resources comes from the rest of America. So in the end, you have to have your infrastructure. And if you don't have your infrastructure, a nation can't stand on its own. And then California would basically be begging the U.S. for everything it needs. It would have to. And it would end up falling apart because it would have to beg, and then it'd end up being reabsorbed after it's lost everything. That's just how it would end up working.
Politically, it doesn't make any sense. It's the same with the Sikhs in Khalistan.
Yeah. Politically, it doesn't make
I can understand emotionally why they want to. Politically, I don't think it's a good idea. So in that way, Modi is correct.
Okay, so this is one of the questions that I had. Have you heard about Kohinoor?
About what?
About Kohinoor diamond?
Well, the Kohinoor diamond.
When are we
It's
getting
in the British Crown.
When are we getting the Kohinoor diamond?
You won't. You should, but you won't. You probably won't get it back.
Do you know the story behind Kohinoor?
Not really, but I know it's a huge, big diamond in the British Crown now.
Yeah, so basically this was a diamond which was in India,
Yes,
in
I know.
Punjab.
Yeah.
And the king during that time, who was a young boy around 11 years old.
I see.
And
Yeah,
he
yeah.
signed that document without knowing that
And
he was giving away
gave it over to the British
to the
Crown,
British.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
since then, legally, they have...
Well, you might. Yeah. Well, then you might get it back. Who knows? Well,
every Indian is asking that question.
Well, there's a gradual feeling. If you notice, some of the artifacts from Greece and so on have been given back to Greece from the British Museum, and there's a gradual feeling of these things which were taken from countries to Britain maybe ought to be given back, and that has begun to happen.
Yeah.
So who knows? In 500 years or 1,000 years, maybe the Kohinoor will be given back. But I wouldn't hold my breath.
Yeah, I mean,
Britain's in debt. Eventually, they'll sell it back. They'll sell it back to India. Don't worry. It'll get back there.
this is very emotional, sentimental.
Yes, I understand. Oh, I understand.
Every time there's a conversation, one of the questions is always about when are we getting the Kohinoor back?
Well, I can understand it, but I wouldn't hold my breath.
Okay, so what is one thing that you have learned in your life that you would like to advise some people in your 98 days of your life? What is one thing that you have learned and you would like to advise to people?
To be tolerant, to be understanding, and to converse instead of fight. Basically, that's my philosophy.
Is there anything in your life that you have regretted?
Regretted? Too many things to mention.
What on top of your mind comes to your mind?
Well, one of them was, again, in India, where I was in charge of... when I was in charge during a riot, and a man was shot by my soldiers, and I've regretted that ever since.
What happened?
What can I say? What can I say? I was in charge, and the riot was there, and people were being injured and killed, and we had to go in and stop it. And unfortunately, I had to order one of the soldiers to kill someone, which he did. I've regretted it ever since.
Which part of India was that?
That was in what is now Pakistan. There was a place called Havelian, which is near Abbottabad.
Near?
Pardon? Near Abbottabad. It was in Pakistan. It was no Pakistan. It was India at the time. And Abbottabad was, I don't know if you'll understand this, Hamara Paltan Kachauni Tha, our regiment's cantonment was in Abbottabad.
Okay.
And Havelian was a town near Abbottabad.
Okay.
And it was in Havelian where this disturbance was taking place. And I had been ordered to go down there with the troops. So that's one thing I regret.
If there's one thing that you would like to tell anyone who's watching or listening to this conversation, may that be Indian, from Pakistan, Bangladesh, British, what is one message that you have for them?
Instead of fighting, sit down and talk and come to a resolution, because you can do it. Everybody has their own opinion, but you can come to a compromise which satisfies without killing people. That's
Well, the issue is like you can sit down and talk, but you have to also strong arm. That's the thing. That's what Trump is basically doing with the rest of the world, with the tariffs, with Greenland. He's basically trying to bully the rest of the world using America's power and influence to force the rest of the world to capitulate to the rest of that. Yes, you can sit down, you can prevent war, but eventually you will be bullied if you're the bigger. And right now, India is the bigger to Bangladesh, and India is the bigger to Pakistan. India, yeah. So you could easily start to use your influence,
one of the things I would say.
because you'll
Thank
never
you, sir.
truly see eye
Thank
to
you.
eye.
Thank you
Wonderful
very much.
conversation with you today.
Well, thank you very much.
And I would just like to say that I think it's very, like I said when I started, that it is one of the rarest opportunities that I got in my life. And thank you to Vasu as well for making me
yes.
Oh my
meet with you.
goodness. Well,
He got to sit and talk. I didn't care for the first part with him explaining his history. It wasn't that interesting. It's just like, okay. And then he got to the part in India, and that was quickly done. And then he got into the geopolitics at the end. It's like, okay. He's coming in with a Britain mind. He wants Britain first, but Britain's falling behind. It makes sense why he's upset.
You guys got a video? What's so bad?
And don't forget to like and subscribe.
Wait on that.